Hi guys, Ron here. A couple of you have been asking for the specification of my cyclocross bike as well. So today I'm going to give you all the parts that make up this build in detail. So this is not an off-the-shelf bike. If you start with the frame, it's the Trek Boone RSL Limited frame set. It only comes as frame only, and what you get with that is the frame, the fork, the headset, and also the through axles, and that's pretty much it. So I chose this frame because, well, in terms of material, geometry or anything, it's identical to the standard frame you get on a Boone 7 or the Boone 5. So it's the updated version, same front and rear ISO speed, flat mounts and through axles front and rear. You can see the RSL Limited logo here. But the difference is that, well, I really like this paint job because my other bike is white as well, so white and black. This one as well. So that's why I decided to do this, and another reason is that I prefer to build my own custom bikes, because this way I have no redundant parts that I would change anyway in the specification of the standard bike. So another thing you need to get this frame running is a seat mast stop from Trek, because this uses the Trek proprietary reversed kind of seat post. This is the standard round model that goes under the Mani, the Amonda, the older Madones, and the older Boone as well. So standard Trek stuff. This is size 54. I'm 172 centimeters tall with 81 centimeters of inseam. This is the shorter 135mm version with the 20mm offset in white. I think it matches quite well. On top of that is a Montrose Pro saddle. This is a saddle for aggressive postures, so even though this bike doesn't have too much drop, I still like to go quite low over the bars when we're riding cross. I think that's from my aggressive road position, so I really like this saddle as well. It has a channel in the middle, carbon rails, which are 7 times 10 millimeters, so you need a specific clamp for that. The standard one wouldn't fit. Then, as you said, the fork, it's basically part of the frame set. Another cool thing about this paint job is that these black details, they are not actually black. It's not as visible on the camera, but this is raw carbon here, also on the insides of the front and rear forks. Yeah, so it's quite a nice paint job. Probably not the lightest because of the white color, but it looks cool. Then, if we go further, press down to the bottom bracket. Since this is a cross bike and they usually take a lot of beating in the mud, I decided to go for a Kogel ceramic cross seal specific bottom bracket, which has more sturdy seals in it, so it should last longer when it's subjected to worse conditions. Then, in terms of the group set, that's pretty much standard cross stuff. So SRAM, Force 1, hydraulic, flat mount, 1x11. A departure from that is the crankset, which comes from a road bike originally. This is a Quark Red D0 power meter crank and 170mm in length. Do you really need a power meter for cross racing? Not at all. I decided to put one on because I was curious about the loads and kind of power I do in a cross race. That's one thing. And the second thing, I also want to use this bike in the summer for gravel riding, and for that a power meter is quite handy, or some mixed surface all-terrain kind of riding in the summer or outside of the cross season. So that's why I decided to put a power meter on that as well. Then in terms of gearing, I have a 40-tooth SRAM narrow wide chainring on there. You could go lower than that, but if you have to use anything lower than 38 or 32, then you're just better off running, so you don't really need a really small gear here. But again, if you choose a bigger one, you can't really use any reasonable ratios at the back, so yeah, 40 I found it to be optimal for cross use. Then if you look at the cockpit and the front of the bike, this is the Bontrager XXX bar and stem combination. I decided to go for this because I like integrated bars. Firstly, because of their weight, of course. Secondly, the looks, but also they tend to be a bit more comfortable because you have uninterrupted fibers all the way, and this way they can mute more vibration without that rigid clamping area, and also because they basically never slip, and that's a good thing when you hit a big bump on a cross course or something like that. For this bar, of course, you need a proprietary Garmin mount, and those need to be bought separately, so keep an eye on that, although Trek has a very good specification on that on the website. The bar tape I use is Lizard Skins 2.5mm camo tape, and I really like this tape. I use it on all of my bikes, and it's very grippy, which comes in handy when racing cross, and also quite durable and easy to clean, which are all positives. Then you might notice that my brake lever, I have this little piece of finishing tape. This is just to add more grip. I found that the shiny surface of these levers is quite slippery when they get muddy or when you try to ride in gloves, so I just added this on for the extra grip. Then if you talk drivetrain, I've already started with the gearing. So yes, standard 7-force 1 derailleur. Specialty that I have on my bike is that I use Jaguar Elite Link aluminum shift cables. So these come in these separate little pieces, which you pull over a nylon tube, or a Teflon tube, sorry, and these are zero compression, so you get very fast shifting, and it improves the accuracy quite a lot. Then I also have ceramic speed aluminum jockey wheels on there, the ceramic speed bearings, of course. They save a couple of watts, but that's not the reason I use them. The main reason is they are very durable and serviceable, so that's again a big plus for racing cross. Then pedal wise, it took me a while to figure out the correct pedals for cross. First I was using Crank Brothers egg beaters, but I have found those very difficult to clip back in, even more so in the mud. I thought that when they are four-sided they are going to be okay, but they are just very kind of a small platform, so when you don't hit it right, you just turn it over and it keeps rolling under your foot. And these standard Shimano ones are basically long enough to not allow that. Now I was looking at the pros bikes, and they use a completely different kind of Shimano pedal with more mud clearance. I can confirm that this XT pedal does clog up still quite easily, but it's night and day easier to clip in than the egg beaters, even though it's basically twice as heavy. So I wanted to upgrade to XTRs, but they aren't really any better in terms of mud clearance. So I'm just really hoping that Shimano will release those fancy new pedals soon. Then if we talk about the cassette, this is in 11:32, so quite a close ratio. I see some guys running SRAMs 1140, 1142, 1042s, and also Shimano cassettes, even the 46 for some of them. But I find it for general riding on a cross bike, yeah, that's okay. You need those low gears, but when you're in a cross race, it's always going to be faster to run up those steep climbs than spinning up in an 1146, for example, or say sorry, a 4046. That's just too slow of a gear to make sense for racing. 1132 is quite stacked at the bottom, so in the fast courses you have plenty of gears to choose from. And yeah, when things get really slow and technical, then just get off. Yes, so we have the drivetrain basically covered. Another neat addition of the track frame, this little chain device. Well, it's not super high-end, it's just a piece of plastic, a nylon, but it works very well. It's quite adjustable for a different range of chaining sizes, and it just works. So with the super high tension and the force on the derailleur, you get a very secure chain. Now, speaking of the chain, this is SRAM 1170 chain, and I use the molten speedwax treatment on it, which works excellent in cyclocross as well. Why do I use? The reason I use this 1170 chain instead of, let's say, a red 22 chain is just more of a practical reason. I have 3 bikes, and all 3 of them have wide different chain sizes, and when I wax them, this way I can easily tell them apart. So I use 1170s for the cross bike, red 22s for the road bike, and XX1 chains for the time trial bike. And then finally, I'm going to talk about the wheels a bit. So I've got 2 wheel sets for this bike. It's really a good idea to have a spare wheel set for cross. So these are all Z303s, and they are all tubeless clinchers and disc specific. So this is the NSW version, so the more high-end wheel. It's a bit lighter, around 150 grams lighter, and it also has the special cognition rear hub, which makes for really easy coasting. So it takes away the drag from the free hub, and it's actually quite useful for cross because you can carry a little bit more speed in those corners. What I don't like about these wheels is that they have center lock hubs, and the other ones have 6-bolt hubs, so there's a bit of a problem with alignment. I have solved that by using Shimano rotors. So for some reason the fit is much closer between these 2 rotors than between the SRAM center lock rotor and the SRAM 6-bolt rotors over there, and the Shimano ones are a bit thinner as well, so that just helps alignment. I use 140 rotors because I feel that you get more modulation in slippery conditions, and you don't really go that fast on a cross course, so you don't need to fight that heat build-up as much, and you don't need to have as much brake power because you don't want to lose your momentum. Tire-wise, these are the new Vittoria Terreno wets. So this is the mud tire. Yeah, here it is, 33 mil, and it's an excellent tire, very grippy, can tolerate extremely low pressures, and it comes up pretty much spot on at 33 mil, even at this very wide rim. On the spare wheel set, I also have Vittoria tires. These are the Terreno mix versions. and they're quite useful at the beginning of the season. These are just 31s, so I was a bit experimenting with the size. And interestingly, these also come to roughly 33 millimeters, so that's a bit odd. Yeah, the wheels themselves are quite similar. They have different hubs. Unfortunately, it makes a bit of a hassle with alignment, but the rim design is very similar. Then one of the differences is that the NSWs have the decals printed into the material itself, whereas the standard ones use just regular stickers. These are quite prone to damage, and you'd have to damage the rim itself to get a lock on these, so these are going to look fresh for longer. Because of the rim has a very blunt, very wide shape, it supports the tires very well, and it also helps with compliance and traction. So together with the ISO-speed decouplers front and rear, and the traction and the compliance from the rims, this is a super grippy bike, very fast around corners. And also what I found is that I can pedal on much rougher sections where others have to just get off the gas and coast. So overall really good handling and an excellent race bike, and in general it's just my skill that needs a bit more refinement now. Okay, so I hope I have covered every detail of this bike and why do I use it. In case you have any questions, or maybe perhaps because I forgot something, which is easily possible, then leave your questions in the comments down below. If you'd like to see a detailed description of my other bike builds, then don't forget to tune into my channel and subscribe. It's all for today. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.